Devil May Cry, God of War, and Bayonetta. When you think of the character action subgenre of video games, you undoubtedly think of these classics and the numerous other titles that share their gameplay elements. Taking on multiple groups of enemies, stringing together combos to juggle them in the air, and making sure to dodge and parry any potential damage so you can finish the level with a high score. All just to inevitably replay it because you fell just short of getting the S rank. But while the majority of people believe Devil May Cry created the genre back in 2001, there was actually one game that did it first. That's right, today we're going to be taking a look at Rising Zan, the Samurai Gunman. Developed by Japanese studio UEP Systems and released for the PlayStation in 1999, Rising Zan certainly promises a one-of-a-kind experience. And looking at the back of the box, there's a lot to unpack. So let's go back to the 1800s, fight our way through 10 action-packed levels, talk about what Rising Zan did right, and how it falls short. But most importantly, let's see if we have what it takes to become a super ultra sexy hero. When booting up the game for the first time, we're greeted with probably the coolest musical opening ever put into a video game. Just watch.
Once upon a time, a blue-eyed boy from the Old West learned one of life's cruelest lessons, that evil was bigger than his gun. So he followed the footsteps of a mysterious master to the Far East, where he learned the secrets of the sword and came back home with the heart of a gunman and the soul of a samurai.
Johnny had a dream of being the biggest hero round. There wouldn't be an enemy that he could not put down with a gun. Well, then one day Johnny met his match and turned his world around. He changed his name and learned the Shogun way of the land of the rising sun, rising Zan. Samurai Gunman, rising Zan. Johnny no more.
You have finally made it, my son. This is the last test and my final lesson for you.
Yes, this plays every time you go to the main menu. No, it never gets old. Starting the first level, a narrated slideshow introduces us to our main character and tells us about the events leading up to the game. In Rising Zan, we play as Johnny, a young lad from a peaceful gold mining town who dreams of becoming the greatest hero that ever lived. And when people start to go missing at a nearby ravine, Johnny takes it upon himself to go and investigate. But when he arrives, masked assassins jump out and attack him, and before he can defend himself, a masked samurai slashes Johnny across the face, sending him plummeting into the ravine below. Thankfully, a man named Suzuki saved him, and being a friend of Johnny's late father, agrees to train him in the ancient fighting technique of Zippang, aka Japan. And after many years of training overseas, Johnny is now a master of both the gun and sword, and returns to his hometown under a new name, Zan. A pretty straightforward, if not simple, bit of exposition that focuses more on giving us the necessary context rather than fleshing out our main characters. But before the first mission actually starts, let's go over the training mode and explain the controls. In a nice narrative touch, this training mode is presented as Johnny's final training session with Suzuki, so it also acts as a short prologue to the rest of the story.
This is your final training session. If you pass, you will have learned all that I have to teach you, and I will allow you to return to your country.
And a nice surprise I found when looking at the game's IMDb page, Master Suzuki is voiced by Charles Martinet, the voice actor for Mario. Unfortunately though, the training mode is the only time Suzuki's voice is actually heard in the game. The D-pad is your standard left, right, forward, back. Circle lets you jump, and holding it down in midair spins your sword like a helicopter so you can float down with more maneuverability. Offensively, X is your katana, Demon Slayer, and pressing it 3 times is your standard sword combo. You can also combine D-pad inputs before pressing X to perform various special moves. Up does a stabbing attack, left right does a 360 hurricane slash, either left or right does a long range horizontal slash, and down up does a leaping somersault that hits enemies multiple times. All of these moves also deplete your spirit gauge, which refills over time and when you defeat an enemy. For your revolver, Johnny No More, tap L1 to lock onto an enemy, then press square to fire. You can also press up and hold square for a continuous stream of bullets, but the majority of enemies will start to block bullets after the first couple shots, so this is fairly niche. Defensively, holding R1 blocks attacks from the front, and L2 and R2 perform a small sidestep in either direction. You can also press up R1 for a parry that deflects projectiles and melee attacks. And that's essentially Zan's moveset for the entire game. There are a couple more mechanics I'll explain when they're relevant, but other than that, this is what you got. Rising Zan has no weapon upgrades, unlockable moves, or extra weapons you can find, so you have to make do with the few moves and item pickups that the game does give you. With that out of the way, let's finally start the first mission. Here comes Zan.
You're one of them, aren't you? Well, I'm not gonna let you get away with it anymore!
Hey, is that any way to treat a hero?
Huh? You? You're Johnny. I thought you'd been killed.
You're the bartender, huh? Hard to recognize you with all those bandages. And by the way, my name isn't Johnny. It's the super ultra sexy hero, Zan.
What the hell are you talking about? And what's with that outfit of yours?
The bartender tells us that the town has been taken over by a group called the Jackals, and with most of the townspeople killed or captured, it's up to us to stop them.
They better get ready for a surprise!
Wait! You can't beat them alone!
When we arrive, we meet the first Jackal enforcer of the game, Gua Gua, who sicks his henchmen on us before retreating further into the town. Our first enemy type is straw men, whose only attack is to float towards you and slowly stab you with the nail protruding from their chest. While they do spawn in large numbers and surround you, they always die to a single hit, so doing a hurricane slash is an easy way to kill them all. Making our way further into town, we get ambushed by a group of green ninjas. Similar to the straw men, they take a long pause in between their attacks, though they do have more health and occasionally block. After getting past them, we're stopped by a locked gate and have to use our gun to shoot the 3 locks in order to progress. And this is a nice way to connect combat and exploration, showing the player that your gun isn't just for shooting enemies, but also a way you can interact with the environment around you. Past the gate, a hostage is tied to a totem pole, so we have to cut him down while Gua Gua launches strawmen at us. With them defeated, 2 red ninjas jump onto the battlefield. Unlike the green ninjas from before, red ninjas have a longer range chain attack and will somersault over you to dodge your attacks. With the hostage rescued, Gua Gua hops into a cannon to escape, and we follow. But for some reason, the correct cannon is the one on the left, despite the fact he very obviously jumped into the one in the middle. After fighting our way through more green and red ninjas, we come across 2 ninjas running on a spinning flamethrower. Time your jumps, shoot them down, and Gua Gua invites us in for a spanking. But when we follow him, a comically large bomb falls from the ceiling and onto Zan. This is the first of the game's many all-button events, where you have to mash every button on the controller fast enough to fill the blue bar before time runs out. If you succeed, you throw the bomb at the back wall to expose a path forward. If you fail, you just take some damage and use the door the normal way. Before passing through the door, make sure to break the 2 crates against the wall to pick up 3 missile bullets and the hamburger to restore your health. There's actually 3 tiers of food in the game. Cola and green tea restore 20 health, hamburgers and tempura restore 40, and sushi, Zan's favorite, restores 80. Now in the back of the church, we finally face Gua Gua. Jumping over his wave of barrels, we use our missile bullets to chew through his health and destroy his floating gondola. For his second phase, he rapidly spins his club and charges towards us. After the 4th charge, he stops and becomes vulnerable for a few seconds, during which we use the first of our 2 mechanics that I mentioned earlier. Those paying attention most likely notice the hero meter in the top left corner of the screen. which fills up whenever Zan kills an enemy, saves a hostage, or completes an all-button event. And for each level of the hero meter filled, you can press triangle to activate Hustle Time. During Hustle Time, Zan's katana grows twice as strong as usual, attacks faster, can use special moves without using Spirit Gauge, runs incredibly fast, and the music changes to this.
Hustle time!
Basically, Hustle Time lets you deal insane damage for a limited time to help you melt through bosses' health, which is exactly what we do to kill Guagua and enter Finish Mode. After you defeat each boss, you'll enter an all-button event to determine your FT score, which will then determine how much time you have to input as many attacks as possible to increase your point total. When the time is up, Zan slices through the enemy, the game ranks your finish on a scale of weak to bitchin', and gives you your final score for the level.
Smoking!
This level score takes into account completion time, how much of your life is remaining, your ratio of katana to gun attacks, your sexy points, and your finish score to give you your final rank. Either chicken, hero, sexy hero, ultra sexy hero, or super ultra sexy hero. Spoiler alert, I am not going to be getting super ultra sexy hero in this playthrough. With Guagua defeated, we feed the hostages and find Valerie, Zan's childhood friend.
Johnny?
Huh? You're
Johnny? No, you're alive!
My name is Zan. I don't know anybody named Johnny.
What are you talking about? It's Val, your neighbor. Don't tell me you've forgotten. What the hell are you wearing? I'll forget it. You did save us.
She tells us about a suspicious castle in the next town, and we're on our way to level 2, Wild in the Street. The next mission is actually the shortest in the game, giving us just 2 minutes to chase down and destroy a walking bomb before it reaches the clock tower. At certain points in the level, a magic barrier will stop us from continuing forward until all the enemies are defeated, with the main enemies being red rums that hover away from Zan before lunging forward, and flame spitters that shoot an unblockable stream of fire. Just sidestep before each attack, and they'll miss every time. After taking care of them, I use my 2 bars of hustle time to spam attacks until the detonator is defeated and finish the level. Following the Jackal Enforcer to their castle, we're introduced to Mr. Sumo, who summons 3 fireballs that we have to shoot and deflect their projectiles back at to secure a path forward. Now inside his dojo, we can see a great example of how enemy models can actually be seen through objects despite being behind them. This is because the PS1 did not have a built-in Z buffer, which is the process of storing entity Z coordinates relative to the camera to ensure they properly obscure one another. But with the PS1's hardware not including it, that meant developers would instead have to create their own solutions inside their games, or in this case, not. Continuing through the dojo, we save a hostage from some red ninjas, do a short platforming segment to cross an electrified floor, and start a mini-boss fight against 2 big bellies. And this fight is where my biggest criticism of the game starts to become apparent: the camera. Because the original PS1 controller doesn't have any analog sticks, Rising Zan's camera follows behind the player and does its best to stay aligned with where you're facing. And this works fine during levels that take place in wide open areas or have you simply run forward. But during boss fights, especially the ones that have you fighting multiple enemies or take place in an enclosed room, the camera's faults start to become obvious. The first is the fact that you cannot reorient the camera behind Zan if his back is against the wall, making it very easy to get knocked back into a corner and not be able to see where the enemies are or what attacks they are winding up for. The second issue is how finicky the lock-on system is. Being tied to aiming your gun, the enemy first has to be on screen and then you have to input an attack before the camera actually turns red and locks onto your enemy. But after you finally do lock onto an enemy, getting hit or even just blocking undoes your lock-on and you have to start the process over again. And what makes it even more frustrating is the fact that the game's lock-on camera is perfectly fine when it does work. All they had to do was have the red lock-on be the default, have walls disappear when the camera collides with them, and not have the lock-on disappear so easily. These changes would not only make it easier to keep track of multiple enemies, but also emphasize the game's one-on-one duels because the player wouldn't have to spend their time running around the arena to recenter their camera every time they're up against a wall. With the big bellies defeated, we complete another all-button event and get my favorite line in the game. For this fight, Queen's Servant teleports around the room while summoning strawmen and throwing knives at you from a distance. And in another example of the camera being my worst enemy, every time I try to lock onto her, it instead locks onto one of the continuously spawning strawmen and turns the camera away from who I'm actually trying to attack. So after some time and my hustle time being wasted, since super speed doesn't pair well with a camera that refuses to turn, we eventually kill Queen's Servant and make it to the final boss of the level, Mr. Sumo. Mr. Sumo has 3 attacks, a stream of 8 hand projectiles, a fire-spitting attack, and stomping the ground to drop ceiling debris where you're currently standing. He can also turn his skin to stone to become invulnerable while you're attacking him. So after the usual strategy of waiting for him to attack, walking behind him, and hitting him with our sword, we kill Mr. Sumo and rescue Suzuki's daughter, Sapphire, who has been spying on the Jackal organization and has some important information to tell us.
Oh, you did?
It's true. The boss's name is Lokai. He built a castle west of here. He's there.
Lokai.
He's the one wearing the mask.
I see. That's plenty.
And this is where it becomes clear that Rising Zan's story isn't particularly deep. There's all the parts of a story, an inciting incident, rising action, climax, and resolution, but there's no emotional investment. Yes, Lokai tried to kill Zan, so he wants revenge, but as a player, we don't experience that. We're only shown it through a slideshow, and any characters for us to possibly connect with and make us want to save the town are only here to give us exposition for the next level before they disappear after their first cutscene. When writing a story for your game, it's not only important to have motivation for your characters so they move the plot forward, but also for your players so they can be invested long enough to actually finish your game. Now on horseback, we make our way toward Lokai's castle, but en route, a jackal train passes us, so Zan leaps off his horse and chases it down to start the 4th level, Hell Train. On board the train, a pair of yellow ninjas are talking about Mr. Gizmo, who seems to be in charge of the gold mines. And when we break through the door, they're surprised that a human is on board the train. Interesting. Yellow ninjas use fast combos consisting of punches and kicks, and similarly to red ninjas, will backflip away after taking damage. In the next car, we have 15 seconds to free the 3 hostages trapped in prison cells, and if you're fast enough, you can also pick up the blue kamikaze orb that grants you a 2nd level of spirit gauge for the rest of the level. After that, pressing a button on the floor activates a moving laser grid and unlocks the exit door for 10 seconds. Pro tip, you can actually break the bars in front of the door without the lasers being activated, saving you a few seconds on your next attempt. The next car has 4 orange pillars you need to destroy, while floating spike balls try to crush you from above. Sidestepping when they start beeping allows us to dodge out of the way as we shoot the pillars and proceed. After doing another timed hostage rescue and destroying 4 more pillars, this time with a spinning flamethrower we also have to jump over, we complete an all-button event to destroy the giant fan trying to push us into a wall of lasers. We then start a mini boss fight against a new enemy type, the Bionic Sumo. These sumos, upgraded with an arm cannon and Guy Fieri pants, shoot powerful cannonballs at you from a distance and backhand you away when you get close. The ideal strategy seems to be to jump over their cannonballs and attack them while they're in range mode, but they can shoot you out of the air and attacking them during their animations doesn't stun them, so they either continue shooting or chain together multiple backhands. And this is actually the first time in Rising Zan where I die. Thankfully, dying in Rising Zan is pretty forgiving. Yes, it takes you back to the beginning of the level, but each level is relatively short and you're able to skip cutscenes, so getting to where you died goes by pretty fast. Back at the Bionic Sumo, a new strategy is sidestepping his cannonballs and shooting him while he's unable to block, combined with using a single bar of hustle time, finishes him off rather quickly and gets us to the final train car to confront Gizmo.
It's the super ultra sexy hero, Zan.
You have no idea
what you are meddling with? Come out, my beloved creation!
Now we have to fight Gizmo's robot. It's immune to bullets, so we have to use only our katana for the duration of the fight. After getting it down to half health, it will charge around the arena and start regenerating from the big machine in the middle. And while it is a simple mechanic, it's refreshing to have a boss battle that forces us to interact with the environment in order to win. On a side note, the music during this fight perfectly captures the weird and futuristic nature of Gizmo and his creations. With Gizmo's robot defeated, he attempts to flee, but Zan shoots him down into the nearby hills and leaps off the train just in the nick of time. As we start the 5th mission, Shogun in the Gold Mines, let's check out Rising Zan's manual to see if there's any interesting or useful information. Alongside a recap of the opening cinematic and basic controls, we also get a character synopsis of both the good and bad guys that tells us a little bit more about their motivations. We learn that the Jackal organization is run by Queen Jackal, a master of witchcraft that works from the shadows to transform her enemies into Jackal henchmen. Probably the reason why the yellow ninjas from before were surprised to actually see a human. And with her goal of world domination and to enslave all humans, Queen Jackal sent Lokai and Gizmo to steal the Westerners' gold in order to fund her schemes. It is a little disappointing that this seemingly important bit of the story is completely left out of the game. Now knowing that Lokai and Gizmo are just henchmen to the real mastermind, it makes me wonder why. Perhaps they were saving her inclusion for a potential Rising Zan sequel in the future. But that's pure speculation, and unfortunately, we'll never know for sure. Down in the Suzuki's Sage Advice section, we learned the second hidden mechanic that wasn't mentioned anywhere in the training mode. By pressing X square X square X, you perform Zan's katana gun combo. Not only does this combo deal more damage than the standard combo, knock back enemies during the final hit, and not consume your spirit gauge, it also grants you extra sexy points every time you hit an enemy with it, and helps you balance out your katana gun ratio for even more points at the end of the level. There's literally zero downsides to using this combo, and I'll be using it a lot more from now on. There's also some fun facts about each of the game's main characters, the most interesting being that Zan's father was actually killed by Jackal assassins, and that Mr. Sumo got second place in the Mr. Zepang Sumo Beauty Contest. After defeating a bionic sumo, he agrees to let us pass before a floating hand comes through the door and kills him. Going through the doors, we come across some blue ninjas singing about their plans for all the gold they're stealing. Blue ninjas attack by throwing explosive bombs at you and teleporting away after you hit them a few times. After shutting down the conveyor belts, we find a blue ninja atop a gate with a large bomb sitting next to him. We have to shoot the bomb to force him to leave cover and put it out, quickly lock on to shoot him a couple times, then sidestep out of the way when he throws bombs from behind cover. Rinse and repeat a few times, and the bomb will explode, opening the path forward. After helicopter spinning our way through a giant flamethrower, we hop into a minecart and continue deeper through the mines. While on the minecart, you have to jump to avoid obstacles, shoot arrow signs to change track directions, and shoot enemies throwing bombs at you from other minecarts. Overall, it's a pretty fun segment that rewards quick reaction time and is a nice change of pace. Just make sure to shoot the last arrow sign only once. I shot it too late the first time, and accidentally kept making the wrong decision on whether or not to shoot it, leading to me taking the same loop full of enemies 3 times before dying and having to do the level again. Finally on the right track, we now have to fight another hell train. Target either side of the train and start blasting, making sure to jump over any missiles it shoots back at you. When both health bars are depleted, the hell train will start to ram you. Jump right before it hits you to avoid damage, and keep shooting to eventually destroy it and reach the bottom of the mines. Now it's time to fight Mr. Shogun, who uses dual katanas and instantly teleports around the arena. If you get hit by his dash attack, A 10-second countdown will appear above Zan's head, and if you don't deal enough damage before the timer reaches 0, you'll be hit for a large chunk of damage. But like most bosses, Hustle Time combined with our new katana and gun combo takes him down with little trouble. With Mr. Shogun defeated, we finally come face to face with Lokai.
Yeah! I finally caught you! Are you ready for a rematch? Show me what you've got!
I can't believe you did all this by yourself. But your luck has just run out. Well, I should have terminated you a long time ago. Die.
You dirty bastard! You don't have the spirit of a samurai!
Climbing our way out of the mines, we conveniently find ourselves at the entrance of Lokai's castle. Time for level 6, Zan vs. Geisha. Entering the first level of the castle, we come across our first pink ninja, her main form of attack being to throw knives in either a fan formation in front of her or straight into the air, causing them to fall on top of you. After defeating a few more, we enter the next room and save a hostage being chased by strawmen. Also, make sure to pick up both the Kamikaze Orb for the extra spirit gauge and the red Sayonara Orb that grants Zan an extra life if defeated. A minor nitpick, but the background music during this level doesn't loop perfectly, instead fading out at the end of the track. And when going into a new area takes a second to load, the music also restarts, leading to moments like this. In the next room, a pair of geisha tells us their boss is the Geisha Queen, the sexiest woman, and that we aren't sexy. Well, that's just preposterous, so I grab the rapid-fire bullets from the nearby crate and unload into them. With that taken care of, we then have to fight our way through a room full of strawmen, a geisha, a pink ninja, and a big belly in just 75 seconds. Making it through with only 1 second spare, we ring the giant bell in the next room, and it's time for an all-button event against a group of 3 ninjas. After exploding them against the wall, we now have to shoot down blue ninjas riding on zip lines while they pepper us with bombs. And this whole level really just highlights the kind of humor that this game is known for. The constant overuse of the word sexy, the slapstick comedy, and just the general absurdity of its premise. Rising Zan's sense of humor and tone really is its biggest strength, and is something that not many games from its time, or even now, can truly replicate. After using a zipline to break through the wall, it's now time to face the Geisha Queen. And I don't know if it's just me, but it took all the way till this boss fight for me to realize that the voice acting for the enemies is just a single Japanese word cut up and rearranged a bunch of times, and not just gibberish.
Kimono, kimo, kimo, kimono, kimono. Kimo, kimo, kimono, de kimono.
So if anyone is able to figure out what the other boss's words are, I would love to see what they are in the comments. Like basically every boss, she has 3 attacks that she cycles between throughout the fight. She throws her fan in a circle in front of her to create a flaming area, she launches homing knives at you, and she has a laser attack that spins around the entire arena, getting progressively faster. You know the drill by now. Dodge your attacks, use hustle time, and get a yeah level finish even though you mashed as fast as you possibly can. Maybe it's just me again, but no matter what combination of random mashing, trying to fit in as many special moves as possible, or just doing Zan's super combo repeatedly has got me even close to getting that bitchin' level finish. On the plus side though, we get our first sexy hero rank and unlock a medal. Collecting these medals in each level is actually how you unlock the various rewards available once you beat the game, and the manual actually has a spreadsheet explaining how many medals you earn for the various rankings you can get on each difficulty setting. Going right into level 7, Mechanical Work Grudge, we immediately start with an all-button event against a giant floating head. And in the next room, we face off against a rather rude Mechanical T-Girl. She doesn't move from the middle of the room, but she does have another 360 laser attack that you need to get close to avoid, and then a spinning attack that knocks you away if you're too close. Apparently, Gizmo is still alive, but that'll have to wait for now. We then have to jump across a series of moving platforms and shoot the enemy firing missiles at us. It may seem difficult timing the jumps to the various platforms, but you can just land in the electricity and use your invincibility frames to get to the tempura on the other side. We then have a room full of mechanical strawmen. While they're weak, like their normal counterpart, their spin attack does insane damage, and because blocked attacks still deal chip damage to you, they can quickly drain you to 1 health if you're not careful. Now, we have to complete the 2 challenges on either side of this hallway before we can proceed further into the level. On the left, we have a baseball minigame, where we have to hit the bomb into the center target 5 times to win, and avoid hitting the outer targets in order to save the 2 hostages. On the right, we have a peekaboo minigame, where we have to shoot the missile launcher enemies without shooting the hostages that also randomly pop up. After we save all the hostages, we have a rematch with the T-girl from earlier, who is now transformed into a fireball spewing pig. Simply just run around while she's firing, and if you activate Hustle Time, your full auto gun attack becomes even faster and shreds through her health. Now, it's time to gamble. The next room only has a button on the floor and a giant slot machine above the door. By lining up the various symbols, you can get a bunch of health items, rescue a hostage, spawn some enemies, or if you line up 3 sevens, unlock the door to the final boss. I was here for 5 straight minutes, like a geriatric person with a layover in the Las Vegas airport. With Gizmo back and piloting a similar robot to the one in level 4, the fight goes basically the same. The main differences being that Gizmo will quickly charge at you from across the arena, and 3 missile launchers on the wall will periodically shoot missiles at you. This fight is more frustrating than it is difficult. Due to the fact you can't aim the camera upwards to easily lock onto the missile launchers, you have to go across the arena and turn around so that they're actually on screen. But you can't go too far, because then the camera won't turn around since you're too close to the wall. And you have to do this while Gizmo is constantly charging at you, and removing your lock-on if he hits you or you block. Honestly, it's easier to just focus on Gizmo and jump whenever the missiles are shot at you, rather than spending your time trying to destroy them. And with Gizmo defeated, we go into one of the most unique levels of the game. It's a kabuki show. In this level, we have to fight our way through various kabuki plays and the actors in them. The first battle takes us to a cherry blossom garden, and the kabuki warrior rides atop a spinning blade that launches projectiles and charges towards us. And I just want to commend the environmental design of Rising Zan, especially the kabuki level in particular. The background and sprite work in this game is absolutely gorgeous, and by theming the entire level around being various plays, the developers were able to fit in a bunch of traditional Japanese environments that there either wasn't space for, or wouldn't have made sense narratively. A unique level design decision that I absolutely love. With the first warrior defeated, it's time to move on to the next play.
Nani nani? Nani nani? Nani nani? Nani? Miro! 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 Nani nani? Nani nani? Nani nani? Nani nani? Miro!
Let's get it on!
Nani nani? Nani? Miro!
Absolute cinema. And the imposter Zan actually uses your own special moves against you during the fight, which is a nice touch. With him defeated, the stage changes to reveal a new set and a new kabuki warrior to defeat. This time, an electric barrier forms around the stage. If his cape spins counterclockwise, you have to run away to avoid getting sucked in and jump over his projectiles. But if it spins clockwise, you instead have to run towards him to avoid getting pushed into the barrier. With him killed, we move on to the next play. This time, the big bellies from level 3 are back. Not quite sure how they survived our last fight though. Either way, the fight is the exact same as before, except we now have our super combo that is able to break their guard on the last hit. With the big bellies dead for the last time, the stage changes and Mr. Goemon enters riding a golden frog. Just jump over the frog's sweeping laser attack and shoot Mr. Goemon until he dies. On to the next part, we find a green ninja trying to rotate the stage for the next play, and in order to stop him, we have another all-button event. For some reason though, this all-button event was harder than every other one in the game. I tried again, and again, and again, until my hands started to cramp from all the mashing I was doing. Eventually, I gave up and started the battle with Mr. Gungoro. Activate Hustle Time and slash away at him. When you're up close, he'll perform an overhead attack immediately followed by a 360 slash. So block both of these before continuing your onslaught, and eventually you'll be defeated and the path forward will open. Going through the doors, we enter the Holy Shrine of Master Lokai, and the Guardian reveals that as long as the drum beats, he can't be defeated. For this battle, you have to defeat the 2 drums that are present, or else the Guardian is immune to all damage. While he's vulnerable, attack him as much as you can until TNT drops onto the floor and the drums reappear. Repeat this process a few more times until the Guardian is defeated, and we're on to the final level, Rising Zan. Everything has led up to this. Your town, the train, the mines, and all of Lokai's castle has culminated in this moment. Surrounded by beautiful violet flames on each side, we climb the stairs, open the door, and come face to face with straw men. But this time they're purple, and they attack slightly faster. Alright, with them out of the way, now it's time to face Lokai and finish. Nope, we have 2 more guards we have to take care of first. Okay, now it's finally time to face Lokai and avenge our town and father.
Oh, you're still alive.
Shut up, sissy! I'm not letting you go this time!
I can't stand this dog anymore.
Let's see what you've got.
At the beginning of the fight, make sure to get a clear view of Lokai's Raven and shoot it out of the sky to prevent it from dive bombing you for the rest of the battle. With that out of the way, it's now a one-on-one duel. Block his multi-hit combos and run around to avoid his cross-slash projectiles, which is a nice callback to the opening cutscene where Johnny got his scar. Get Lokai down to his last bit of health, and Gizmo returns once again.
You? Why couldn't you have just stayed in here?
How long are you going to toy with this kid? If you are not going to use the Lord's shield, give it to me, and I'll put it to good use.
I've told you, the shield was given to me by my lord, and is much too important to hand over to the likes of you.
I can't play around with you any longer. I'll finish this now.
Now you're probably asking, what's the Lord's Shield? I honestly have no idea. It was never mentioned during the game, and I read the entire game manual and didn't find anything about it either, so... On to Phase 2. With Lokai now wearing a new set of samurai armor, just activate your 3 levels of hustle time and stun lock him into the corner of the room. With Lokai dead, Gizmo steals the Lord's Shield from him, flees to the next room, and now it's time for the real final boss.
My best creation! This will be the worst fear you've ever experienced, and then you will die!
That's right. The final boss of Rising Zan is not Lokai or even Gizmo, but instead Gizmo's best creation, a robot monster hybrid with a giant skull on its back. Use hustle time to deplete its health, and then complete the all-button event to throw it into the next room and start Phase 2. Just like its first phase, Gizmo's creation will charge and attack the player with its long arms. In addition to that, it'll leap onto the ceiling and create damaging pools of energy that you need to avoid while it begins to spin towards you on the floor. Doing all that while avoiding its projectiles and lasers, we pump it full of lead, perform our final finish, and finally beat the game.
isn't Johnny. It's the super ultra sexy hero, Zan.
And that's Rising Zan, the Samurai Gunman, or at least the normal mode. With this story complete, you can now play through the game again on hard mode or even as Sapphire with slightly different combos and special moves. And if you unlock enough medals in each of the levels, you can also unlock Expert and Serious mode, Hustle Time mode for unlimited hustle time, and best of all, Underwear mode. Despite being one of the first in its genre, Rising Zan isn't perfect by any means. Its plot is surface level. Side characters are only relevant for single cutscenes, with the events that do happen feeling more like an excuse to get to the next level rather than to tell a compelling story. And while the combat does provide a decent amount of special moves, the lack of interesting combos or progression, combined with an unintuitive camera, makes for an average at best combat system. But despite all this, it's a fun time. It has a charming sense of humor, simple but well-made level designs, and if you can get used to the combat system, a ton of replayability with all of the medals and secret modes you can unlock. Rising Zan really is better than the sum of its parts. After Rising Zan released, it unsurprisingly got average reviews from critics and players alike, with the most common complaints being the technical aspects of the game, while most reviews enjoyed the silly humor and unique premise. And considering it was from a developer that has only ever made snowboarding games, it was a solid first attempt. Maybe if UEP Systems spent more time polishing up their hidden gem, it would be more fondly remembered alongside the other classics of its genre. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you don't want to miss any future uploads. And if you actually played Rising Zan back in the day, or this video encouraged you to try it for the first time, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this game that seemingly no one remembers. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next video.
青い瞳のガンマンが海を渡って武者修行極めし銃と刀にてこの世に無用の悪を断つ